In the bleak, endless expanse of the far north, where the wind whispers through barren forests and the frozen earth stretches into oblivion, there exists a realm where myth and nature converge. It is a land where every gust of wind carries echoes of ancient tales, where the pale light of a winter sun barely penetrates the swirling mists of snow and ice, and where the harsh realities of survival are interwoven with legends that chill the soul. In this unforgiving wilderness, two figures stand out as icons of terror and power. One, a real creature of astonishing strength, and the other, an apparition born of indigenous lore. This is the story of the polar bear and the Wendigo. For countless generations, the indigenous peoples of North America, among them the Algonquin, Cree, and Ojibwe, have recounted chilling stories of a creature that roams the desolate, frozen forests and windswept tundra. They call it the Wendigo, a being steeped in horror and the embodiment of insatiable greed and unending hunger. In these traditions, the Wendigo is not merely a monster but a living curse, a creature that arises from the darkest recesses of human desire and the harsh isolation of the frozen wild. Descriptions of the Wendigo vary widely. In some tales, it is portrayed as gaunt and emaciated, with skin clinging tightly to its skeletal frame, eyes sunken deep in its skull, and teeth that gleam like shards of ice. Other legends speak of it as a towering, half-human, half-beast figure, part man, part deer, with antler-like horns sprouting from its head and a presence that exudes both sorrow and malice. Despite these differences, the one common thread is the aura of dread that surrounds the Wendigo. It is said to be a creature of supernatural speed and strength, able to move silently through the dense, snow-laden forests and across the barren ice with an almost ghostly presence. Its eerie calls, a combination of a mournful wail and an inhuman shriek, have been known to freeze the blood of even the hardiest hunter. In these stories, the Wendigo is both the personification of nature's merciless side and a moral cautionary tale, a warning against the corruption of greed and the perils of isolation. In stark contrast to this spectral terror stands the polar bear, a creature whose raw physicality and evolutionary adaptations have allowed it to thrive in one of the most unforgiving environments on Earth, the Arctic. The polar bear, or Ursus maritimus, is a living monument to survival. Adult males, weighing anywhere between 400 to 700 kilograms, 900 to 1.500 pounds, and measuring 2 to 3 meters in length when moving on all fours, with some rearing to over 3 meters when standing upright, command the frozen realm with an awe-inspiring presence. Their white fur, which perfectly camouflages them against the endless snows and ice, is not merely for show. It serves to protect them from the elements and to give them a stealth advantage as they silently stalk their prey. Beneath this fur lies a thick layer of blubber that not only insulates against the bitter cold but also acts as a natural armor against the bites and claws of any adversary. Polar bears are masters of ambush, waiting patiently by breathing holes in the ice for seals to surface, then pouncing with explosive power that leaves little chance for escape. Their enormous paws, armed with claws nearly 3 inches long, deliver powerful swipes that can break bones and dismember prey. When a polar bear roars, it is not merely a sound of hunger, it is a declaration of dominion. A reminder that in the harsh world of the Arctic, only the strongest survive. Yet, as formidable as the polar bear is in its domain, its world is one defined by harsh physical laws and a brutal struggle for survival, a world governed by cold logic and relentless endurance. It is a creature whose life is a series of calculated risks, a silent testament to nature's uncompromising will. The polar bear's strengths are rooted in its physicality, its powerful limbs, thick protective fur, and the raw, crushing force of its bite. But this creature, despite its size and might, also has its limitations. Its physical form, while robust, is not built for the subtle nuances of stealth in the way that a creature of myth might be imagined. It is a creature of the tangible world, its instincts honed by the need to hunt in an environment where every second counts and every misstep could mean death. It is precisely this contrast that makes the imagined encounter between the polar bear and the Wendigo so compelling, a confrontation that is as much about the clash of two opposing philosophies as it is about the meeting of flesh and myth. On one side, we have the polar bear, an embodiment of the raw, unyielding power of the natural world, a creature that relies on its physical strength and relentless drive to survive. On the other, the Wendigo represents something far more enigmatic, an entity that transcends physical form and embodies the darker aspects of human nature and the wild. It is said that the Wendigo moves with a supernatural grace, sometimes even vanishing from sight or blending into the swirling mists of snow and forest. Its very presence is a harbinger of doom, a reminder of the insatiable hunger that can consume both man and beast. Now, let us imagine the stage for their encounter. Picture a desolate, snow-laden forest in northern Canada or Alaska, a place where the temperature is so low that the air itself seems to crystallize. The night is long and oppressive, the only light coming from a waning moon that casts eerie, elongated shadows on the drifts of snow. In this bleak setting, the silence is broken only by the distant howling of the wind and the occasional rustle of branches under the weight of the frost. Here, on the periphery of the forest, a solitary polar bear ambles along the edge of a frozen river. It is a creature driven by hunger, its stomach empty from days of scarce prey, and it moves with the deliberate, measured gait of one who knows that every step could mean life or death. As the bear moves closer to the tree line, the atmosphere grows even more unsettling. Somewhere in the darkness, beyond the reach of the bear's keen senses, a presence stirs, the Wendigo, drawn by the scent of potential prey and the chill of the winter night, begins its silent approach. It may not be visible to the naked eye at first. Legends tell of its ability to blend with the shadows, moving with an almost ethereal grace that belies its monstrous power. Some stories describe the Wendigo as gaunt and emaciated, its skin clinging tightly to its skeletal frame, with sunken eyes and razor-sharp fangs that glisten in the moonlight. Others portray it as a hulking, half-human, half-beast creature, with a skeletal visage and twisted horns, a form that seems to defy the natural order. Regardless of its exact appearance, the Wendigo is always a creature of dread, a symbol of the insatiable hunger that can drive a being to the brink of madness. In this frozen night, as the polar bear lumbers along the riverbank, the Wendigo makes its presence known not with a roar or a growl, but with a series of low, eerie sounds, a combination of guttural moans and bone-chilling shrieks that ripple through the stillness. These sounds, echoing off the icy walls of the forest, are said to have the power to instill terror in even the hardiest of souls. The polar bear, although unaccustomed to such supernatural calls, pauses for a moment, its eyes narrowing as it listens. There is an instinctual alertness in its posture, a recognition that something is not right, that a presence unlike any it has encountered before is drawing near. For the Wendigo, this is a moment of opportunity, a chance to exploit the solitude of the polar bear, to strike when the mighty beast is distracted by its own hunger and the unforgiving silence of the night. Legends claim that the Wendigo possesses a strength that surpasses the limits of ordinary animals, that it can move with a speed and agility that is almost otherworldly. Some tales even suggest that the creature can become invisible, melding with the shadows to stalk its prey unnoticed. Whether these attributes are born of mere myth or a reflection of a darker, primordial truth, they add to the terror that the Wendigo inspires. As the two beings finally come into proximity, the confrontation is inevitable. The polar bear, though physically imposing, is a creature of the tangible world, a predator whose power is measured in muscle and bone, in the might of its claws and the force of its bite. Its strengths lie in its raw physicality, its thick fur, its insulating blubber, its ability to endure the relentless cold and the rigors of life on the ice. Yet, the polar bear also has its vulnerabilities. Its form, built for brute force, lacks the subtle, elusive qualities attributed to the Wendigo, a creature said to be imbued with an almost supernatural agility and a capacity for stealth that defies the natural order. The encounter might begin on a desolate patch of snow near the edge of the forest, where the terrain is uneven and treacherous, a mix of ice, snow, and the dark silhouettes of skeletal trees. The polar bear, driven by desperation, moves with a measured caution, its powerful limbs leaving deep impressions in the frost. At the same time, the Wendigo, whether it takes on the form of a gaunt, spectral figure or that of a hulking, twisted beast, emerges from the darkness. It may appear on a high branch, or perhaps slink from behind a gnarled boulder, its arrival heralded by a sudden, chilling whisper or a blood-curdling shriek that shatters the silence. At this critical juncture, the stage is set for a confrontation that is as much about psychological terror as it is about physical combat. The Wendigo might use its uncanny ability to move silently and its eerie vocalizations to disorient the polar bear, its cries, a blend of human anguish and animal ferocity, echoing across the frozen landscape. In response, the polar bear, though momentarily startled, unleashes a mighty roar of its own, a sound of raw defiance and primal power that reverberates through the trees and over the ice. In that moment, both predator and legend stand poised on the knife's edge of violence, each aware that the next instant could decide their fate. The ensuing battle would be a spectacle of contrasts. The Wendigo, moving with a speed and grace that belies its monstrous form, would dart through the shadows, striking swiftly with elongated, clawed hands and vicious bites aimed at the polar bear's most vulnerable points, the neck, the eyes, or even the joints of its massive limbs. Its methods, though cloaked in the mystique of myth, are intended to debilitate and terrorize, creating wounds that not only sap the physical strength of its foe but also, according to legend, carry a curse of insatiable hunger and madness. In many of the traditional stories, a single, deep wound inflicted by a Wendigo is said to drive its victim into a state of agonizing delirium, rendering even the strongest predator helpless before the relentless assault of the creature's supernatural might. On the other hand, the polar bear's response would be one of raw, overwhelming force. Its strength, honed by generations of surviving in the harshest conditions on Earth, would manifest in explosive, bone-shattering strikes, with powerful limbs and a bite capable of crushing skulls. The bear would rely on its physicality to overpower the seemingly insubstantial terror of the Wendigo. Each swipe of its massive paw is not just an attack but an assertion of dominion over a realm that the polar bear has ruled for millennia. Its thick fur and layers of blubber serve as a natural defense, absorbing and deflecting the supernatural assaults of its spectral adversary. And when the bear roars, a sound that echoes like thunder across the frozen wasteland, it is a declaration that in the harsh, unforgiving reality of the Arctic, there is no place for fear or weakness. As the confrontation escalates under a starless, frigid sky, the very elements seem to conspire with fate. Snowflakes, shimmering like shards of broken glass, swirl around the combatants, carried by a wind that seems to moan with the voices of ancient spirits. The cold is relentless, a constant reminder of the unforgiving world in which these beings exist. Every breath the polar bear takes is visible in the freezing air, each exhalation a cloud of determination. Meanwhile, the Wendigo's movements, as fluid as they are eerie, blend into the shadows, making it appear as though it is part of the very darkness that pervades the night. In this imagined encounter, the advantage of terrain becomes a critical factor. The polar bear, adapted to life on vast expanses of ice and open water, might find itself disoriented in a dense, snow-laden forest where the Wendigo can exploit every shadow and hidden crevice. Conversely, if the battleground were more open, a frozen plain with little cover, the polar bear's sheer size and strength would dominate, allowing it to charge and overwhelm with a single, decisive blow. Thus, the outcome of this supernatural duel is inextricably linked to the environment. The interplay between light and dark, open ground and hidden shadows, and the eternal struggle between the tangible power of nature and the intangible forces of myth. For the Wendigo, the element of surprise and the ability to strike swiftly are its greatest weapons. Folklore suggests that this creature can move almost without a sound, its footsteps barely disturbing the snow, its approach heralded only by a sudden, piercing cry or a flicker of movement in the peripheral vision. Its slender, elongated limbs, though not built for brute force, are perfectly adapted for rapid, agile movements through dense forests and across frozen landscapes. Yet, the very qualities that make the Wendigo a terror in legend also render it physically fragile. Its lean, almost emaciated frame, described in many accounts as skeletal and gaunt, lacks the natural armor that the polar bear possesses in the form of thick blubber and dense fur. Consequently, while the Wendigo might be capable of inflicting quick, nerve-wracking strikes and sowing chaos with its supernatural aura, Any sustained physical confrontation with a creature as massive and resilient as a polar bear would likely prove devastating. The polar bear, however, is not a creature to be easily intimidated, driven by an unyielding will to survive in a world where only the strongest endure. The bear's every sense is honed to detect the slightest movement or sound. Its eyes, cold and calculating, scan the environment with a focus that has been refined over countless hunts on the icy tundra. When it senses the approach of the Wendigo, a creature whose very existence is steeped in terror, the bear's response is immediate and ferocious. Whether it is driven by hunger or the need to defend its territory, the polar bear's instinct is to neutralize any threat with overwhelming force. Its roar, deep and resonant, is a challenge to the darkness itself, a declaration that in the realm of ice, only raw power can dictate the terms of survival. As the night deepens and the confrontation draws nearer, the stage is set for a battle that transcends the ordinary. The polar bear and the Wendigo are no longer simply animals or mythic figures. They have become symbols of two opposing forces, one representing the unyielding, physical might of nature, and the other embodying the mysterious, spectral terror of ancient lore. In the silence of the frozen forest, amid the swirling snow and the whispering wind, the inevitable clash is not just a struggle for survival, but a timeless dance of light and darkness, a battle that challenges the very limits of human imagination. In this epic confrontation, the polar bear's strategy is rooted in its tangible power and battle-hardened instincts. It seeks to use its massive body and crushing bite to incapacitate its foe quickly. Its thick fur and blubber offer protection against the Wendigo's desperate, lacerating strikes, while its powerful limbs allow it to deliver blows that can shatter bone with a single swipe. Yet, the polar bear is also aware of its vulnerabilities, its relative lack of agility in dense, shadowy environments where the Wendigo might lurk unseen, its reliance on brute force that could be exploited if the creature were to strike at a vital, unprotected spot. Conversely, the Wendigo's approach is one of stealth, cunning, and psychological terror. It relies on its supernatural ability to move silently through the snow and its unearthly vocalizations to disorient and frighten its prey. Its lean, elongated limbs allow it to strike quickly and retreat before the polar bear can mount a full counterattack. But the Wendigo's ethereal nature, as depicted in the legends, is a double-edged sword. Its form, often described as gaunt and barely more than a wisp of shadow, lacks the physical robustness to withstand prolonged combat against a creature as massive as a polar bear. Thus, the stage is set on a bitter, frigid night in northern Canada or Alaska, a landscape where every sound is magnified in the stillness. Every shadow may hide unspeakable horror. The polar bear, driven by hunger and a fierce will to survive, ambles near the forest's edge, its eyes scanning the darkness. At that same moment, from the dense gloom of the ancient pines, the Wendigo appears, an almost spectral figure moving with a silence that belies its deadly intent. The air is thick with tension as the two adversaries become aware of each other, their instincts converging in a moment that seems suspended in time. In the ensuing moments, the battle will be decided by a combination of instinct, environmental advantage, and the raw, terrifying clash of physicality versus myth. The polar bear, with its mighty, measured strides, is a force to be reckoned with in open, frozen terrain. It can rely on the vast, empty expanses of the tundra to utilize its full strength, charging headlong into an enemy with a devastating force that leaves little room for error. On the other hand, the Wendigo, if it truly possesses the supernatural qualities described in the legends, its ability to blend into the darkness, to move without a sound, and to strike with unearthly speed, could exploit the forest's natural cover to launch a series of quick, disorienting attacks aimed at weakening the polar bear before it can deliver a decisive blow. As the confrontation unfolds, every element of the scene contributes to the mounting horror and tension. The swirling snow, the creaking of ancient ice, the intermittent howls of the wind, all of these become part of a symphony of dread, underscoring the timeless struggle for survival in an environment where both nature and myth reign supreme. It is here, in this frozen crucible, that the polar bear and the Wendigo are forced to confront not only each other but the very essence of what it means to be a predator in a world where the stakes are nothing less than life or death. In this dramatic, otherworldly setting, the polar bear's every action is measured against the backdrop of an unforgiving environment. Its massive form, honed by countless battles against the elements and its natural prey, moves with a deliberate purpose. Every step is a calculated risk, a testament to its evolution as the apex predator of the Arctic. Its keen senses, refined by the relentless pursuit of survival in a land where food is scarce and danger lurks in every shadow, detect the faintest sound, the slightest rustle of movement in the distance, and when the Wendigo makes its presence known with a blood-curdling cry that seems to chill the very air, the polar bear responds with a ferocity that has been its hallmark for millennia. For the Wendigo, the encounter is imbued with the weight of legend. Its appearance, whether interpreted as a gaunt, skeletal figure or a more monstrous, half-human, half-beast form, is enough to strike terror into the hearts of those who believe. In many indigenous tales, the Wendigo is not simply a creature of the wild, it is a manifestation of an insatiable hunger. A curse that transforms human greed into a literal, consuming force. It moves with an uncanny grace, almost as if it is more shadow than substance, and its methods of attack are as psychological as they are physical. With elongated limbs that seem to stretch unnaturally in the moonlit snow, the Wendigo can strike without warning, its razor-sharp claws and teeth inflicting wounds that not only sap physical strength but are said to curse the victim with an unending hunger. As these two forces, one grounded in the tangible reality of nature's raw power, the other rising from the depths of myth and terror, prepared to collide. The outcome is shrouded in uncertainty. In this neutral arena where the frigid cold of the Arctic meets the dark, primeval mystery of the forest, the polar bear and the Wendigo embody two opposing facets of survival. The bear's massive, hulking form and its reliance on brute force represent the indomitable will of nature, a force honed by generations of surviving the relentless challenges of the frozen north. The Wendigo, with its spectral presence and supernatural agility, represents the haunting legacy of ancient curses and the dark side of human nature. A creature as elusive as it is terrifying, their confrontation is not merely a physical battle. It is a collision of ideologies, of what it means to be a predator. The polar bear, with its clear, measurable strength and well-documented survival tactics, offers a vision of nature that is brutal yet beautifully straightforward: power, endurance, and the unyielding drive to survive in a harsh world. In contrast, the Wendigo is a symbol of the unknown, a creature whose very existence challenges the limits of our understanding of nature and myth. It is said to be both intelligent and malevolent, capable of luring its victims into a state of terror with a single, bone-chilling scream or the silent approach of a shadow. In the moments before their inevitable clash, as the wind whips through the ancient pines and the snow falls in a relentless, silencing flurry, both creatures stand as paragons of their respective worlds. The polar bear, its eyes fierce and unwavering, embodies the physical might of a species that has evolved to conquer the frozen wastes. Every inch of its massive body is a testament to the relentless drive of evolution in one of the coldest, most inhospitable environments on Earth. The Wendigo, in contrast, is an enigma, a figure wrapped in darkness and myth, moving with a fluidity that defies the limitations of the physical form. Its presence both alluring and repulsive in equal measure. This epic narrative of confrontation, where the tangible and the mythical collide, serves as a profound meditation on the dual nature of existence in the wild. It is a story of contrasts, the polar bear's raw, measurable power set against the ineffable, almost supernatural terror of the Wendigo, the clarity of nature's design versus the murky depths of legend and folklore. As the two adversaries circle each other in the frozen silence, the stage is set for a battle that will test not only their physical prowess but also the very essence of what it means to be a force of nature. In the ensuing conflict, every moment is charged with tension. The polar bear's massive form moves with deliberate precision, its every step resonating with the weight of centuries of evolution. Its roar, deep and resonant, cuts through the icy stillness, a sound that speaks of raw survival and ancient dominance. The Wendigo, with its almost otherworldly grace, moves silently among the trees and shadows, its presence heralded by the faintest rustle of snow and a series of unearthly, echoing cries that send shivers down the spine. It is a battle where every clash of claw against flesh, every reverberation of a roar or a shriek, becomes a note in the timeless symphony of life and death. And so, as the frozen night deepens and the snow continues its silent descent upon this surreal battlefield, the confrontation between the polar bear and the Wendigo looms ever closer, a collision of two paradigms. One born of tangible, raw power, the other of myth and intangible terror. The outcome of their battle, though shrouded in uncertainty and legend, will be determined by a single, irrevocable truth. In the savage wilds of the Arctic, only the strongest and most relentless prevail. As the frigid darkness deepens and the wind carries with it the mournful echoes of ancient legends, the long-anticipated confrontation between the polar bear and the Wendigo begins. In that moment, the frozen forest seems to hold its breath. The polar bear, a living embodiment of brute strength and raw determination, advances steadily through the snow. Each massive step leaves a deep imprint on the pristine white, a testament to its relentless power honed over millennia in the unforgiving Arctic. Its eyes, fierce and unblinking, are fixed on the figure emerging from the shadows, a creature of myth whose very presence chills the blood. The Wendigo appears as a spectral silhouette against the dim light of a waning moon. Its form, shrouded in ragged, matted fur and cloaked in a veil of darkness, moves with an eerie, almost supernatural grace. There is a hunger in its eyes, a malevolence born not only of its endless appetite but also of the ancient curse it carries. It glides from behind a cluster of frost-covered pines, almost silently, as if it were part of the swirling mist that blankets the forest. In some legends, the Wendigo is said to be able to vanish into the shadows, its footsteps barely disturbing the snow. Tonight, however, its form is unmistakable, a gaunt, emaciated figure with elongated limbs, gnarled fingers ending in wicked, sharp claws, and eyes that seem to burn with a hellish light. For a long, suspended moment, the two creatures regard each other in silence. The polar bear's low, rumbling growl blends with the unsettling, otherworldly whispers emanating from the Wendigo. In that charged stillness, the polar bear's physical presence, the immense bulk, the raw power of its muscles, and the protective armor of thick fur and blubber, seems to assert dominance over the quiet menace of the Wendigo. Yet the creature of legend is not without its own dreadful might. Its very aura exudes an uncanny energy, as though it were not merely flesh and bone, but a manifestation of the dark forces that lurk at the edge of human understanding. The first strike comes as if from the depths of a nightmare. With an explosive burst of speed that belies its massive form, the Wendigo lunges from its concealed position. Its long, sinewy arms extend toward the polar bear, aiming for vulnerable spots where flesh might yield under the assault. In a flash, its razor-sharp claws lash out, slicing through the air. The sound is not so much heard as felt, a visceral shudder that ripples through the frozen ground. At the same time, the polar bear reacts with instinctive precision. It lowers its massive head and swings a paw, the motion fluid and devastating. The impact is titanic, a collision of raw, physical power and spectral, almost supernatural ferocity. Claws clash against thick fur as the bear's swipe meets the Wendigo's elongated digits, and a spray of snow and blood bursts into the cold air. The Wendigo, agile and unpredictable, twists its body in midair, evading the full force of the bear's counterattack. It emits a series of high-pitched shrieks, sounds that echo like the tortured cries of lost souls through the stillness of the night. These unearthly vocalizations are meant not only to intimidate but also to disorient the polar bear, tapping into a primal fear that legends claim can paralyze even the mightiest predator. The bear, however, is far from an easy target. Its eyes narrow as it shakes off the initial shock, and it roars, a deep, guttural sound that reverberates through the trees and stuns the very wind. That roar is a declaration of its reign over the frozen wastes, a reminder that, in the harsh calculus of nature, only the strong survive. As the battle rages on, the two adversaries become locked in a deadly dance, a series of rapid exchanges where each strike, each counter, is executed with a level of brutality that seems almost choreographed. The polar bear, fueled by hunger and an unyielding will to live, employs its superior size and strength with clinical precision. Its powerful forelimbs, capable of delivering bone-crushing blows. Lash out repeatedly. Every swipe sends ripples through the snow, each impact marked by a resounding crunch of bone and the sickening thud of raw muscle colliding with unyielding force. In response, the Wendigo moves like a specter, its form a blur against the white expanse. Its limbs moving with an unnatural speed. It darts in to deliver swift, vicious strikes aimed at the bear's more exposed areas, the joints, the neck, even the eyes, where a well-placed claw could inflict debilitating damage. There is an elegance to its attack, an artistry that speaks of ancient powers. Yet the ruthlessness of its blows is unmistakable. With every encounter, the Wendigo seeks to chip away at the bear's defenses, its supernatural agility and terrifying shrieks adding an eerie dimension to the struggle. Throughout this relentless exchange, the environment itself plays a critical role. The icy ground, once pristine and untouched, is now scarred by deep claw marks and punctuated by splashes of crimson. The wind, which moments ago had whispered secrets of the ancient world, now carries with it the metallic tang of blood and the heavy scent of cold, damp earth. Amid the swirling snow, the silhouettes of gnarled trees and rocky outcroppings frame the epic confrontation, creating a landscape that is as much a character in the battle as the two combatants themselves. The polar bear's thick fur and blubber, natural shields against the biting cold and physical attacks, are gradually marred by the relentless onslaught. Deep gashes, carved by the Wendigo's savage strikes, begin to open along the bear's flanks. Blood, dark and steaming against the white snow, marks the passage of each brutal blow. Yet, even as the bear's physical defenses show signs of wear, its indomitable spirit remains unbroken. Every fiber of its being is dedicated to the struggle, every movement a testament to the evolutionary mastery that has enabled it to survive for millennia in one of the harshest environments on Earth. Meanwhile, the Wendigo, despite its supernatural agility and eerie cunning, reveals the fragility of its form. Its lean, almost skeletal body, which in legends is imbued with an almost ethereal speed, begins to betray the toll of the physical battle. Jagged wounds, remnants of the polar bear's crushing strikes, mar its otherwise ghostly appearance. Yet, even as its flesh is rent and its movements grow more labored, the creature's eyes burn with an unyielding determination, a ferocity that transcends the limits of its emaciated form. The Wendigo is not merely a monster of myth, it is an embodiment of an insatiable hunger, a curse that transforms its very being into a vessel of endless, consuming desire. At a critical moment, the battlefield seems to freeze in time. The polar bear, sensing an opening, narrows its focus to a vulnerable area along the Wendigo's side, a place where the protective layer of its spectral form is thinnest. With a thunderous roar that shakes the surrounding ice and sends tremors through the ground, the bear launches a decisive charge. Its massive paws, each swipe a harbinger of death, come down with ferocious intensity. The Wendigo, caught in the grip of the bear's momentum, attempts to twist and evade, its long limbs flailing in a desperate bid to escape the crushing force. For a moment, it appears as though the very fabric of the night might tear asunder under the weight of the polar bear's assault. But the Wendigo, drawing on a reserve of supernatural resilience, counters with a burst of speed that seems to defy nature. In one fluid, almost dance-like motion, it slips away from the bear's lethal grasp and reappears a few paces away, its body shrouded in the swirling shadows of the snow. The polar bear's roar is undiminished, however, a sound that resonates with the power of 1,000 winters. It pivots and charges again, determined to close the gap. Its every movement a calculated blend of raw physicality and primal instinct. The ensuing minutes become a blur of violence and desperation, a relentless series of strikes and counterstrikes that test the limits of both creatures. The polar bear, despite the mounting injuries that mar its thick hide, presses on with an inexorable will. Its eyes, steely and unyielding, fixate on the Wendigo, as if daring the creature to break the stalemate. Each swipe of its massive paw is delivered with the precision of an Arctic warrior who has survived countless battles on the frozen tundra. Meanwhile, the Wendigo's haunting cries pierce the stillness of the night, echoing across the ice as it weaves in and out of the polar bear's reach, its movements a blend of supernatural stealth and raw, untempered fury. As the confrontation reaches its zenith, The harsh realities of the environment become ever more pronounced. The biting cold, which has served as both a shield and a challenge for the polar bear, now acts as a relentless adversary. Every exhalation is visible in the frigid air. Every impact sends shards of ice scattering across the battlefield. The trees, once silent witnesses to this epic clash, now groan under the weight of the conflict, their branches trembling in the wind. The ground is a mosaic of deep, dark gouges and splintered ice, a grim record of the brutal struggle that has unfolded. In this ultimate test of survival, both the polar bear and the Wendigo are pushed to the very limits of their endurance. The bear, with its massive form and enduring strength, begins to show signs of fatigue. Its movements become heavier, its roars more labored, yet its resolve remains unbroken. The Wendigo, for all its eerie agility and supernatural cunning, is not impervious to the relentless force of the bear's assault. Its once spectral form now bears the scars of battle, its lean body marked by deep lacerations and wounds that bleed with an almost hypnotic persistence. At the heart of this ancient, mythic clash lies a profound question about the nature of survival. Is it the tangible, measurable strength of a creature forged in the crucible of the Arctic? Or is it the intangible, almost spectral power of a being born from the darkest recesses of folklore? The polar bear, a paragon of physical might, embodies the relentless, unyielding force of nature, a creature whose very existence is a testament to the power of evolution in the face of adversity. Its every movement is a symphony of muscle and bone, a display of raw, primal energy that has allowed it to reign over the frozen wastes for countless generations. The Wendigo, in contrast, is a manifestation of ancient terror, a creature that transcends the boundaries of mere biology to become a symbol of insatiable hunger, unchecked greed, and the dark, inexplicable forces that lurk at the edge of human understanding. In a final, cataclysmic moment, as the night deepens and the swirling snow obscures the battlefield in a shroud of uncertainty, the polar bear gathers its remaining strength. With a roar that seems to shake the very fabric of the frozen world, it launches one final, desperate assault, a barrage of claws, teeth, and raw power that is both awe-inspiring and terrifying. Every strike is a culmination of centuries of survival, a last stand against a foe that is as enigmatic as it is relentless. The Wendigo, driven to the brink of exhaustion yet fueled by an otherworldly fury, meets the assault with a ferocity that defies its emaciated form. In that instant, the two forces collide in a burst of violence that blurs the line between myth and reality. The impact is monumental, a collision of ice and shadow, muscle and myth, where each second stretches into an eternity of pain, rage, and the raw struggle for life. The polar bear's claws tear through the air, finding purchase on the Wendigo's body, while the creature's unearthly shriek fills the silence with the sound of impending doom. For a heartbeat, the world is reduced to that singular moment of raw confrontation, a tableau of primal power that defies explanation. Then, as quickly as it began, the frenzy of battle subsides. The swirling storm of snow and blood begins to calm, and the battlefield is left bathed in a heavy, mournful silence, as the last echoes of roars and shrieks fade into the distance. The survivors, if any, retreat into the shadows. The polar bear, its once pristine fur now a tapestry of deep gashes and crimson stains, limps away slowly, its eyes reflecting a weariness born of the relentless struggle for survival. The Wendigo, a creature of myth that had danced on the edge of legend, vanishes into the dense, foreboding darkness of the forest, leaving behind only whispers and the lingering chill of its presence. This confrontation between the polar bear and the Wendigo is not merely a battle of two predators. It is a timeless saga, a clash of tangible strength and intangible terror, of nature's brute force against the spectral whispers of ancient lore. It challenges our understanding of what it means to survive in a world where every creature, whether born of flesh or myth, is locked in an endless struggle against the unforgiving elements. In the realm of ice and shadow, where legends are forged in the crucible of battle, the ultimate victor is determined not solely by physical might, but by an indomitable will to endure, an eternal testament to the relentless drive of life. Even in its darkest, most mysterious forms, as the bitter night deepens and the swirling snow mutes even the fiercest roars, The polar bear and the Wendigo enter the final, fateful moments of their confrontation. Every element of the frozen wilderness seems to hold its breath. The wind dies down to a mournful whisper. And the trees, gnarled and ancient, stand as silent sentinels to a battle that transcends time and myth. The polar bear, its once pristine fur now marred by deep gashes and streaked with dark rivulets of blood, limps forward with a determination that belies its battered form. Every labored breath forms a heavy cloud in the icy air as it navigates the uneven ground, a stark, desolate clearing at the edge of a snowbound forest. Its eyes, still ablaze with the raw intensity of survival, fix on the retreating figure of the Wendigo. That creature, once a spectral terror, now moves with a staggering, almost pained agility, its elongated limbs dragging as if burdened by an ancient curse. The Wendigo's eerie, otherworldly cries still echo faintly in the distance, a lingering reminder of the supernatural terror it once embodied. For the polar bear, the clash has been a battle not only of physical might but of willpower. Its massive body, designed for relentless hunts on endless ice, now bears the scars of an enemy that was never meant to be measured in pounds and muscle. Each scar is a story, a moment when the bear's claws met the supernatural talons of a creature born of myth. When the eerie, unearthly force of the Wendigo threatened to sap its very strength. Yet the bear's instincts, honed over millennia in a realm where only the strongest survive, drive it ever onward. Its survival depends on more than brute force. It demands a fierce, unyielding resolve to overcome an adversary that, by all accounts, should have been more than a match for the raw power of the Arctic. The Wendigo, too, is marked by the brutal exchange. Its once ghostly form is now tattered, its lean body scarred by deep claw marks and punctured by savage bites. The creature's eyes, which once shimmered with a supernatural glow, now reflect a flicker of exhaustion alongside the lingering spark of an ancient, cursed hunger. In legend, the Wendigo is said to be immortal, a creature of endless hunger and spectral prowess, but even myth cannot entirely shield it from the raw, uncompromising brutality of physical combat. With each strike and counterstrike, the creature has paid a steep price, its ethereal nature challenged by the undeniable force of evolutionary might. In the final moments, the two predators stand as embodiments of duality, a clash of tangible, measurable power against the ineffable terror of legend. The polar bear, massive and scarred, summons the last vestiges of its strength. Its eyes narrow, focusing on a point where the Wendigo's defenses seem to falter, a patch of skin exposed beneath ragged, matted fur. With a roar that seems to echo off the distant glaciers and reverberate through the frozen ground, the bear charges in a final, desperate surge. Its enormous paws, each swipe laden with the weight of countless winters, lash out with unbridled fury. The impact is cataclysmic, a single, decisive blow that shatters the silence of the tundra. The Wendigo staggers, caught off balance, its eerie shriek merging with the bear's triumphant roar. For a heartbeat, time seems to slow as the polar bear's claws and jaws deliver the final blow, a moment when muscle and bone, honed by the relentless demands of nature, overcome the ghostly, supernatural speed of the Wendigo. The creature's form falters and then collapses into the snow, a final, silent testament to the brutal realities of life in the frozen north. The polar bear, though wounded and exhausted, stands victorious, alone, majestic figure against a backdrop of crimson-stained snow and silent, towering pines. As the battle draws to a close, the environment itself mourns the cost of such an epic confrontation. The once pristine snow is now marred by deep gouges and splatters of blood. And the wind, which had carried the Wendigo's haunting cries, now whispers softly of loss and survival. The polar bear slowly turns away from the scene, each heavy step echoing the eternal truth that in nature, even legends must eventually yield to the relentless march of survival. This ultimate confrontation between the polar bear and the Wendigo is more than just a clash of predators. It is a profound meditation on the interplay between the tangible and the mystical, the known and the unknown. It challenges our perceptions of power, resilience, and the blurred lines between myth and reality. In a world where the biting cold of the Arctic meets the whispered terrors of ancient folklore, the struggle for survival is as much a battle of spirit as it is of muscle and might. For those who revel in the mysterious and the monstrous, this epic showdown offers a window into a realm where legends come to life and every shadow in the snow might conceal a force as old as time itself. As the polar bear retreats into the icy darkness and the legend of the Wendigo fades into the silence of the frozen forest, one is left with a lingering question, a question that will echo through the ages. In the harsh, unyielding wilds of the north, what truly defines a predator? Is it the measurable, brutal force of nature? Or is it the intangible, haunting legacy of myth?